Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, usually when you adopt a new technology at work, the boundary is pretty clear.
Right. It's a tool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like a tool. You swing a hammer. Well, the hammer doesn't suddenly learn how to swing itself better tomorrow just based on your grip. It's a one-way street.
Absolutely.
But today, we're looking at a massive paradigm shift where that boundary is like completely evaporating. We aren't just using AI as a standalone tool anymore.
No, we're really entering into this living, breathing cognitive loop with it.
Right. A cognitive loop. And that completely breaks how we traditionally conceptualize work and value and just expertise in general.
It's a fundamental rewiring of the DNA of a business, honestly. We're moving from these static tools to dynamic partners.
So whether you are, managing a retail floor or running a logistics company or sitting in a corporate boardroom, this transition is absolutely going to impact you.
Oh, without a doubt.
To navigate this for you, we're pulling from two really grounding sources today. First, we have this highly philosophical memo from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella.
Yeah, from June 2026.
Right, which outlines the macro future of the firm in an AI economy.
Okay.
And second, we are pairing that abstract theory with a very practical piece from July 2026 by Sheesh S.
Titled The Learning Loop, Retail's Next Competitive Moat.
Exactly.
Right.
Which shows us how this actually works out in the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission for you on this deep dive is pretty simple. By the time we wrap up, you will understand why simply buying access to the smartest AI model won't save your business.
That's a huge misconception right there.
Yeah, it really is. And you will also know exactly what a learning loop actually is, and you'll see how it's completely redefining physical industries like retail.
I think it's going to blow people's minds a bit.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So let's just jump straight into the big paradigm shift that Ella points out. He argues that historically, digital systems enhanced human capital. But AI is different.
Right.
AI can actually continuously absorb human expertise and, well, commoditize it.
What's fascinating here is how Nadella actually redefines the very assets of a company to explain that threat.
Oh, the two buckets. Right.
Yeah, exactly. He splits a firm's value into two distinct buckets that every business must now actively build. You have human capital and token capital.
Okay, let's define those for everyone listening. Human capital is like the classic stuff.
The human element. Yeah.
Right. It's your knowledge, your judgment, your relationships, the ingenuity, and that vital pattern recognition of the actual people inside the organization.
And then token capital is the new bucket.
Right.
That is the firm's proprietary AI capability. It's the specific AI infrastructure it builds, trains, and entirely owns.
And this leads to a highly counterintuitive dynamic, I think.
Yeah.
You might logically assume that as token capital grows, as the AI gets smarter and handles more of the heavy lifting,
And the human capital would become less valuable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Nadella argues the absolute opposite. He says human capital becomes exponentially more valuable.
It does.
Which honestly feels like a paradox at first glance. I mean, if the machine is doing all the thinking, why is the human suddenly more valuable?
Mm-hmm. Well, think about the underlying mechanics of an AI system. Without human agency directing it,
Setting the goals.
right, setting ambitious and novel goals,
Yeah.
connecting the dots across totally unrelated domains, or just recognizing which weird data patterns actually matter to that specific business.
The AI just doesn't know what to do on its own.
Exactly. It's essentially aimless. As Nadella puts it, without that human direction, you just have massive amounts of compute running in circles.
Just burning energy without generating any real business value.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I want to make sure I'm visualizing this correctly.
Sure.
If I'm understanding this right, it's like a master chef, right? The chef represents our human capital, and they're teaching a highly advanced kitchen robot, which is our token capital.
I like this analogy.
So the robot can chop an onion perfectly, like 1,000 times a second.
Yeah.
But the chef is the one who has to explain why a specific dish needs a slice of dice today.
Because the local seasonal onions are unusually pungent or something?
Exactly. The ultimate value is in the teaching and the contextual awareness, not the mechanical chopping. But Nadella says you can offload a task, but you can never offload your learning.
Right.
Why hasn't the chef offloaded the learning once the robot knows how to chop?
Well, because the restaurant's goal isn't just to chop onions efficiently.
Right.
The goal is to continuously adapt to the shifting tastes of the patrons, the changing seasons, and, new culinary trends. The environment is always moving.
It's not static.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Nadella clarifies that the real opportunity for a business isn't just picking the best generalist frontier model off the shelf.
By generalist frontier model, you mean like the big famous AI systems everyone pays a monthly subscription for?
Precisely. Everyone has access to those same generalist models now. I mean, they are basically a commodity.
So they aren't a competitive advantage anymore.
Not at all. The true intellectual property of a future firm is what he calls the learning loop.
The learning loop.
Yeah, it is an architecture you build where the AI actively retains the niche expertise of your company veterans.
How does it actually retain that expertise, though, like mechanically speaking?
Right, so it's through a process called private reinforcement learning.
Okay.
Think of it like a closed-door scrimmage. The AI is practicing and learning exclusively on your company's own secure data.
So it's looking at our specific wins and losses.
Your specific wins, your specific mistakes, and the real-time corrections your employees make every single day.
Wow.
You also use private evaluations. Instead of testing the AI on, like, public internet trivia or standardized tests, you measure if the model is improving against your actual internal business outcomes.
So it's a closed system that is constantly compounding based on the company's totally unique DNA.
Exactly.
And that compounding loop becomes the new IP, which means, I guess, you could hypothetically swap out the underlying generalist AI model tomorrow.
Right, for a newer, faster version from a different tech giant.
Yeah, but you wouldn't lose the deeply ingrained company-specific expertise your learning loop has accumulated over the years.
That is the ultimate goal. The loop itself is your moat.
Okay, so Nadella's theory sounds brilliant in a boardroom.
Ah,
But how does this actually survive contact with reality?
it gets a bit messy.
Because if you look at an industry like retail, it isn't just clean data on a screen.
No, not at all.
It's chaotic, it's highly physical, and it relies almost entirely on the unrecorded gut intuition of the people on the floor.
Which is why we need to ground this theory using Shish's article. Retail is arguably the ultimate test case for this exact reason.
Think about a veteran retail store manager today. They didn't learn their job from a textbook.
No, they lived it.
They learned it by surviving Black Friday rushes, dealing with sudden stockouts, and, figuring out spatial dynamics.
Like realizing that if you move a display rack just 3 feet to the left.
It suddenly creates a huge bottleneck by the cash registers.
Exactly. This knowledge is what we call tacit.
Tacit, meaning it's entirely undocumented.
Right. It lives solely in the manager's head.
Which is terrifying for a business owner if you think about it. Because the day that manager retires or takes a job at a competitor across the street, all of that hard-won tacit knowledge just walks out the front door.
And the company is back to square one.
Yeah.
And this is where Shish makes a critical distinction that every business leader listening really needs to grasp.
Okay, what is it?
It's the difference between having a human in the loop and building a true learning loop.
Walk us through that distinction, because honestly, they sound identical to me.
They do, but they're fundamentally different. A human in the loop is basically just quality control.
Okay.
An AI generates an output. Let's say it suggests a staff schedule for the week. A human manager looks at it, says, no, this won't work because Sarah needs Tuesday mornings off, overrides the schedule and moves on.
So the work gets done.
The work gets done, but the system doesn't learn anything from why the human rejected it. Tomorrow, the AI is going to make the exact same mistake.
Oh, I see. But a learning loop changes that dynamic.
Fundamentally, a learning loop captures the reasoning behind the manager's override.
So it asks why.
It ingests the interaction, the specific correction, and the final business outcome, and feeds all of that back into the private training data.
Wow. So the model gradually internalizes the highly specific rules of your individual store.
Exactly. It takes that tacit individual expertise of the veteran manager and metabolizes it into a permanent institutional asset.
But to pull that off in a physical space like retail, Shishis points out that a standard sales forecasting model just isn't enough.
No, it's way too simple.
You have to build what he calls a world model,
Mm-hmm.
because retail expertise is deeply spatial.
Right. A world model actually learns an internal digital representation of how a physical environment behaves.
It anticipates how the three-dimensional space of the store will respond when a physical variable changes.
Precisely.
Okay, but I have to push back here. Wait, if I'm a store owner, and I have a flawless cloud-based spreadsheet telling me exactly what sold last Tuesday down to the penny, why do I need a complex AI to understand the physical space of my store?
That's a fair question.
Isn't my transaction log the ultimate truth of what works?
Yeah.
I mean, numbers don't lie.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the transaction log is actually incredibly incomplete.
Really?
Yeah, it only tells you what happened at the very end of a successful journey. A standard forecasting model knows a specific brand of cereal sold well last Tuesday.
Right.
But a world model knows it sold well because it was physically sitting at eye level, directly adjacent to a high-traffic path that customers naturally use to get to the milk coolers.
So it understands the spatial context of the sale.
Yes, and even more importantly, a world model captures the misses.
The misses. Like what?
Well, imagine a customer standing in front of an electronics display for 5 straight minutes.
Oh.
They pick up the product, put it down, look at the price, and then walk away entirely empty-handed. Right. That long dwell time is vital data. It indicates high product interest, but suggests a massive pricing friction.
But your cash register, it completely misses that interaction.
Exactly. A transaction log just records a 0. It doesn't know the customer was ever there. A world model sees a missed opportunity and actually learns from it.
That makes total sense. The physical context is the missing variable that actually explains customer behavior.
Exactly.
But that leads us directly to the mechanics of this whole operation. Because if this world model needs to understand physical space and dwell times and context to feed the learning loop, where on earth does a retailer get all that complex data without completely overwhelming their IT team?
That is the million-dollar colon, and it requires a synthesis of highly diverse data streams.
Right.
Shish breaks this down into 3 specific pillars of data, which act as the raw materials for the loop.
Let's walk through those for you listening, because this is where it gets very real. The first pillar is internal data. This is the stuff a business already has, right?
Yeah.
Point-of-sale records, staffing schedules, current inventory levels.
Exactly. It provides the baseline of what was bought, when, and by whom. But to understand the why, you really need the second pillar, which is external signals.
Things happening outside the store walls,
Exactly.
like weather patterns, local events, competitor pricing, social media trends. And Sheesh highlights how the Microsoft for Startups ecosystem is stepping in to do this heavy lifting so the retailer doesn't have to build it from scratch.
Which is a huge relief for these companies.
Seriously. But how do these startups actually capture those external signals?
Well, they automate the collection of context. For example, there's a startup mentioned called Nimble.
Nimble.
Instead of a human manually checking competitor websites, Nimble runs autonomous web search agents that constantly scrape and pull real-time structured pricing data from across the public web.
So you always know what the guy down the street is charging.
Exactly. Then you have platforms like iGenie.ai and Tembi and ClueTrack.
What do?
They synthesize massive volumes of online searches, e-commerce assortments, customer reviews, and social conversations to find the underlying themes behind changing demand.
Wow. So they replace those slow, traditional focus groups by analyzing what people are organically complaining about or praising online right now.
Yes, in real time. They can tell your system that demand for a specific jacket isn't spiking because of your brilliant marketing campaign, but because an unseasonable cold snap just hit your specific zip code.
Which brings us to the third pillar, and arguably the most sci-fi element of the world model, which is sensor fusion.
This is where it gets wild.
It really is. This is the physical data. How does a digital loop actually, see the store?
This is where we completely transcend the transaction log. Startups like Ariadne provide privacy-first people counting and flow analytics.
So they track where people walk.
Exactly. They track the physical paths anonymous shoppers take and identify exactly where they drop out of the journey.
And then you have companies like Shopper AI, which turn existing security cameras into real-time shelf intelligence. How does that work mechanically, though?
Well, the visual sensor uses computer vision to detect physical gaps on the shelf.
Okay.
It translates a physical stockout, or maybe a blocked aisle, into a digital signal the exact second it happens.
Oh, wow.
And that can instantly trigger a supply chain reorder in your learning loop without a human ever having to notice the empty shelf.
So when you put it all together, the learning loop can correlate that a specific product sold out today because of what it was, where it sat physically on the shelf, how many people walked past it, what the competitor down the street was charging, and the fact that a local festival was happening outside.
It's an incredible amount of context.
It really is. But for those of you listening who are worried about the sheer nightmare of IT integration, how is this even feasible?
I know, it sounds daunting.
Stitching together privacy-first cameras, web-scraping bots, and old sales logs sounds literally impossible for a normal company.
And that is exactly where the platform approach becomes mandatory. Shish points out that the Microsoft stack is designed to solve this exact plumbing problem.
Okay, how?
It starts with the data layer, a product called Fabric. Fabric is designed to converge all your data engineering, storage, and analytics into one single unified environment.
So your internal sales data is sitting in the exact same place as the external signals streaming in from those startups.
Precisely. You aren't building a dozen custom bridges between different software vendors.
That makes a lot of sense.
And on top of that unified data, you have the AI layer called Foundry. This is where the learning loop actually runs.
Okay.
Foundry provides the models, but more crucially, it provides an agent optimizer.
Wait, what does an agent optimizer do?
Think of it like a tireless digital project manager.
Okay.
It constantly looks at the unified data, generates candidate solutions like, say, proposing 3 different floor plans for the holidays,
Right.
tests them in the digital world model, ranks them by predicted profitability, and then deploys the best one to the human manager for review. It manages the whole machinery of the loop.
And regarding those physical sensors and cameras, tracking movement sounds like a massive privacy and governance risk.
Oh, it absolutely is, which is why the third piece of the stack is governance. The system includes tools like Purview for data governance, Entra for identity management, and Defender for security.
Because when you deal with camera feeds, you have severe compliance obligations.
Exactly. By using a platform approach, the privacy and security controls are baked right into the data layer itself rather than bolted on as an afterthought.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Once this whole system is integrated, the data, the world model, the agent optimizer, how does it change the day-to-day reality on the floor?
It's a game changer.
The article notes this system actively tunes the business. It can predict inventory at the individual product level to reduce safety stock without ever causing a stock out.
It dynamically times markdowns, too, to clear out old inventory while protecting margins.
And because of the world model, a manager can actually simulate a proposed layout change in the AI before ever paying staff to physically move heavy shelves overnight.
That saves so much time and money.
And every time that veteran human manager overrides the AI's suggestion because of their local gut intuition, the AI learns. The loop captures the tacit knowledge and the company's proprietary advantage compounds.
It just keeps getting smarter.
Yeah. But that compounding advantage brings us back to Nadella's opening memo. Because the economic stakes of getting this right or, hoarding it all are massive on a societal level.
They really are. Nadella makes a very stark pivot here, and it's a heavy warning.
He compares this impending AI transition to the first phase of globalization. He argues that outsourcing hollowed out entire industrial economies.
Right.
On paper, at a macro level, the GDP numbers looked fantastic, but the displacement of workers on the ground was very real, and we are still dealing with the political fallout today.
Absolutely.
Now, just to be clear, we are impartially reporting his perspective here. We aren't taking a side on the politics of globalization, but his framework serves as a dire warning about what happens when economic value is extracted by a few rather than shared broadly.
This raises an important question, and it is the absolute core of his fear regarding AI.
What's the fear?
Well, if we end up in a scenario where a few giant AI models just eat all the global data, absorb every industry's tacit expertise, and capture all the economic value, society simply will not tolerate it.
It would be disastrous.
You cannot build a sustainable AI future that hollows out entire industries, where independent companies wake up and find their hard-earned knowledge commoditized right out from underneath them by a tech monopoly.
So how does Nadella propose we avoid that hollowing out?
He argues that the tech industry must build a frontier ecosystem, not just a single frontier model.
A frontier ecosystem.
Yes, the objective is a stable equilibrium. In this equilibrium, every single company, whether it's a massive retailer or a regional logistics firm, owns its own private learning loop.
They use AI to amplify the expertise of their own employees.
Exactly.
So the economic value they create flows broadly across their specific industry and their local communities, rather than being siphoned off by the platform provider.
That's the vision. When every organization has the tools to encode its own institutional knowledge and compound its own human and token capital, that is how you drive sustainable value for the broader economy.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's synthesize the journey we've been on today.
It's been quite a ride.
We started at the macro level with Nadella, redefining corporate value as human versus token capital. We saw how human agency is the only thing that gives the compute any meaningful direction.
Then we moved down into the physical chaos of a retail store.
Right, exploring how world models and sensor fusion capture the unwritten spatial intuition of those veteran managers.
And finally, we zoomed back out to the global economic necessity of owning your own learning loop to protect your industry from being hollowed out.
The through line is undeniable, I think. Your proprietary tacit knowledge is your ultimate moat, but only if you build a system capable of capturing and compounding it.
Exactly. Whatever industry you are in, having access to a generalist AI is just the starting line.
Building your own learning loop is the actual race.
Well said.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a new angle to ponder, something that builds on everything we've explored today.
Oh, what is it?
Well, we know that token capital grows exponentially by constantly absorbing the hard-won tacit knowledge of senior company veterans.
Right.
But if that learning loop becomes incredibly efficient at handling all the routine day-to-day operations, what happens to the career paths of tomorrow's entry-level workers?
Oh, wow. It is a profound structural paradox.
Think about it. Those senior veterans only gained their valuable gut intuition because they spent years doing the grunt work.
They made the mistakes.
They made mistakes. They physically moved displays. They manually fixed stockouts at midnight.
Yeah.
If all those routine tasks are entirely offloaded to an AI from day one, how will the next generation of human workers ever gain the foundational expertise needed to eventually supervise and guide the machine?
You can't be the master chef directing the robot if you've never been allowed to chop an onion.
Exactly. You just can't. That is the next great challenge of the cognitive loop. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you. Keep guarding your tacit knowledge. And, as always, keep learning. We'll see you next time.